Nesoranin, and welcome to another episode of Talk Time with Morton Cobbs. As I get my microphone situated. All right. So, good morning, Nesoranin, to my listeners here in the FSM. Good morning to my listeners back in the States. Good evening. It's about 6 o'clock p.m. Saturday night, East Coast, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning here, battling a cold. If if last weekend I was battling a cold, and you know, luckily I didn't miss teaching any any of the days. I didn't miss teaching, but a number of students were absent. So they said something about like a mixture of like the flu along with COVID, like something was going around. I don't think I had COVID. I didn't get tested or nothing, but I just took last week. I just took Saturday to like isolate. So I decided not to go live last Sunday, the 22nd, which was initially when I was going to go live. But here we are, and we're now officially 2 weeks into the second quarter here at Xavier. So officially been teaching for over 1 quarter now. First quarter has come and gone, learning experience for myself as well as for my students. I'm now an academic advisor, which is great. I have a group of students who are my advisees who will come to me with questions and concerns. And so 1 quarter in, starting to get into the swing of things. I'm starting to get a feel for how long the quarter lasts, and pacing of like the class and like the teaching. So yeah. So that's all exciting. It's all very exciting. Let's see. Where do I start? This episode is going to be mainly we're going to be talking about the New York Comic Con. Yeah, New York Comic Con, which was, gosh, maybe like 2 weeks ago, and but a lot has happened since we last spoke, so let's just dive into it. Ahsoka Part 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlock. I feel like I haven't watched that episode since it came out, but season/series finale for Ahsoka. We see Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra pretty much escapes with Thrawn, and then he like steals a TIE fighter, and then he regroups with Hera and Chopper. So I think that the Ahsoka series was a fun series. It's a fun series, fun show on its own. I mean, the title of the season finale. I mean, the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlock is definitely from the Chronicles of Narnia. Um, how perfect that today is Sunday, and for the SNL about Lazy Sunday and the Chronicles of Narnia. um, yeah, Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I haven't read a single one of those books. I've only seen the first movie. Yeah, but Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I feel like it came out maybe 2006. I know Prince Caspian was 2008. I never saw that one. Yeah, that one I never saw. I've seen maybe the opening of it. I've seen like the first 20 or 30 minutes. I just never sat through all of it. And then Voyage of the Dawn Treader was the third one in 2010. Never saw that one. Apologize if I sound a bit congested. But Ahsoka, I am excited to see where they're going with the Ahsoka series. I think this new generation of Star Wars, from the sequel trilogy to now the Disney Plus shows, they're going places that we haven't gone before in Star Wars. I think this is all kind of going to set up the universe that the sequel trilogy existed in, and how perfect that they have Dave Filoni. You know, Dave Filoni, who worked on Clone Wars and Rebels, and now he's working on Ahsoka. You know, he's just such a visionary. He's one of the best like Star Wars creatives that have worked with Star Wars, and with this new generation, this new wave of Disney Plus series for Star Wars. Like we got Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and now Ahsoka. I'd say Ahsoka's maybe the second. No, no, no. I put it as like third best. For me, it's Mandalorian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, and then Book of Boba Fett. Although, again, I do not think that Book of Boba Fett was a terrible show. I liked it. I thought it was a good show. But definitely go check out all 8 episodes of Ahsoka streaming on Disney Plus now if you haven't done that already. And then as soon as Ahsoka ended, we got season 2 of Loki. A lot has happened. A lot has happened as I'm going to my notes. A lot has happened. Loki, you know, we see the TVA, and it kind of picks up right where season 1 left off, and Loki's sort of time slipping in and out of time, and he meets Ouroboros, who's played by Ke Huy Quan, who also starred in another multiverse movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, a movie that I will watch at some point. I still haven't watched it. But it was nice for them to bring in Ke Huy Quan as Ouroboros, which is literally a snake swallowing its own tail. And apparently there's like a guidebook for the TVA that Ouroboros literally wrote the entire book. He wrote the book on the TVA essentially, and apparently the like timeline was going haywire. And he said how only the temporal loom of the person who created it, of the person who created the TVA, can actually go out there and like shut it down. And of course, we know that the person who created the TVA was He Who Remains, who was a variant of Kang the Conqueror. He Who Remains, who, if you remember from season finale of season 1, was killed. He Who Remains, played by Jonathan Majors, who was killed. You know, He Who Remains was killed at the end of season 1 of Loki. So now episode 3, 1893. That was a fun episode. I like that episode because it's like they went back to 1868 and found a young Victor Timely, another Kang variant, probably my favorite Kang variant that we've seen on screen. Because again, Jonathan Majors, he's just such a brilliant actor. I am so praying for an innocent verdict, and that he can stay in the MCU, and that he makes it to Kang Dynasty. You know, his whole case, his whole mishap has just been ridiculous at this point. His now ex-girlfriend has actually been arrested. She's been charged with assaulting him. I saw on, I think it was either the Shade Room or one of those Instagram platforms. But yeah, you know, Jonathan Majors. TVA time book, the TVA guidebook that was written by Ouroboros in 1868. And then 25 years later, 1893, at the World's Fair in Chicago, at the Chicago World's Fair, which was a place where folks could just show off their inventions. He has a presentation where he demonstrates his like time machine temporal aura device thing, and he kind of comes off as, I guess, if I were to compare him to a real life inventor, maybe Nikola Tesla. Yeah, he's kind of like the Nikola Tesla of that universe. You know, having all this like advanced knowledge that's ahead of its time. Back in 1893, having all this advanced technology, this advanced knowledge, and people saying like, "Oh, it's science fiction." Well, all science is fiction until it is proven. All science is fiction until it becomes fact. So yeah, that was a fun episode. 1893. They go back in time to find Victor Timely and bring him to the TVA. And then in episode 4, the episode that just aired, we had they scanned his temporal aura, which matched that of He Who Remains, and he goes to try and shut down the malfunction that's happening on the sacred timeline, and then he pretty much gets disintegrated. So, so yeah, that he pretty much gets disintegrated. So that escalated. If any of you saw my initial reaction, I posted on TikTok, posted on Instagram as well as TikTok and Threads. So follow my Threads account. I am starting to post more on Threads. My initial reaction, because we saw the episode ends with literally Victor Timely pretty much dying. He goes into like the spacesuit and like he's gonna shut down. He's gonna repair the sacred timeline, but then boom, he just disintegrates, pretty much explodes, and cut to the credits. So I think there's only 2 episodes left. Episodes 5 and 6. I think those are going to be the last 2 episodes for this season. Uh, yeah, I mean, there's only 2 episodes left, and I can't, I can't believe that 2 episodes left, because this is by far the best Marvel Disney Plus show. We had, and it's one of the 2 Disney Plus series that have actually been given a second season. Loki and What If, which I'll get to in the New York Comic Con segment. But yeah, there was Loki, and like all the shows like from Phase 4. Like we had WandaVision. I liked WandaVision. I liked WandaVision. I liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier, although there was that plot line that was cut because it was they decided to cut that plot line. I don't know if we're ever going to get the pre-COVID cut of Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think that was a fun show, a nice way to set up Sam Wilson, Captain America. Fun miniseries. Then I'm trying to think what else was next. There was Loki. There was Marvel What If. Marvel What If, I feel like, is a show that can never end. There's endless possibilities. Um, what else? Then there was the Hawkeye series, and then 2022 we got Moon Knight, who I feel like they could have just waited until the movie Blade, which we don't even know if that movie's happening or not. Mahershala Ali is like pushing 50 at this point. So when and if the movie Blade ever happens, the plan was apparently Moon Knight is going to show up in the Blade movie, or if they're doing a Midnight Suns movie, like he'll be in there. He'll be in that movie as well. I feel like they could have just introduced him in Blade and then given him the series. I think that that's why WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and why Loki, even Loki for that matter, have worked so well because these characters have been introduced on the big screen. On the big screen in these, either solo movies or the crossover movies. Like, we've been with the characters like WandaVision. She was, Wanda Maximoff. She was, well, both Wanda Maximoff and Vision were introduced in Avengers: Age of Ultron. So we've been with those characters at the time that WandaVision came out, 2021. At that point, 6 years. At that point, like, we had 6 years worth of movies. We had, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, Avengers: Endgame. To fall in love with these characters over time. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's like at that point we had 7 years. It's, well, for Falcon, 7 years because Falcon showed up in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which I still think is one of the best Marvel movies. Period. One of the best MCU movies. Um, yeah, that was 2014. We got introduced to, and that was the movie that we were reintroduced to the Winter Soldier, reintroduced to Bucky. Although we were technically introduced to Bucky in 2011's Captain America: First Avenger. So 10 years, 10 years with these characters, 10 years over the course of numerous films, and that's why their spin-off miniseries works so well. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki. It's like he's a fan favorite character who we were introduced to. Thor, who we were introduced to in Thor, and then he was kind of introduced as a bit of a villain, as a kind of villain in Thor, and then he was the villain. He was the main antagonist in the Avengers. In the Avengers, and then in Thor, the Dark World, he kind of becomes a bit of a reformed anti-hero. It's like he ends up imprisoned, but then it's like they gotta release him from prison because now there's a greater threat, and it's like we have to fight a common enemy. So, which is a trope that's used again and again in cinema. Yeah, Thor: The Dark World, and then he's just such a trickster. He faked his own death, and then he like posed as Odin, and then and then he comes back, and then we don't see him again until 2017's Thor Ragnarok, the best Thor movie, and then he dies in Infinity War, and then an alternate version of him escapes with the Tesseract in 2012. So that's why Loki was so interesting as a show, because it's a version of Loki that hasn't had his transformation from, post the Avengers. He hasn't had his transformation from Thor: The Dark World, Thor Ragnarok, and Avengers: Infinity War. That plot line, that timeline, that storyline, excuse me, hasn't played out yet. So this is a version of Loki that just escaped with the Tesseract and got the last laugh at the end of the Battle of New York. So because the Avengers screwed up essentially during their time heist, and that's why Loki worked so much. We've had time to get invested in this character. We had year after year, Comic Con after Comic Con, to get invested in this character. Hawkeye series, which was kind of like a Die Hard esque, sort of Christmas vibes, uh, mini series. Takes place around Christmas time. Hawkeye, he's not a street level hero. Like he's like a Avenger, but it's like he's an Avenger, but just seeing him kind of just on the road, just like living his life, being a dad, and you know, and that show worked so well because we again have had time to get invested in him as a character, the character who cannot seem to retire. You know, he's attempted to retire multiple times. It's like we're introduced to him in Thor. That's when we first see Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. He doesn't do anything in that movie. And then he's one of the Avengers in 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 the Avengers, or as it's known in the UK, has his mind control. He's then has he's then brainwashed by Loki, and he becomes one of Loki's minions, and then he joins the good guys again. So seeing him assemble with the rest of the Avengers in at the Battle of New York, and then seeing him, we don't see him again until Avengers: Age of Ultron. Yeah, we see him like, again Avengers: Age of Ultron, and seeing how like he has had a family this whole time. He's had a family off the books this whole time, and at the point that Age of Ultron rolls around, Shield no longer exists technically because I guess you could say Captain America: The Winter Soldier is like Avengers 1.5, kind of. You know, does star two Avengers and introduces Falcon. It's one of the more consequential films in the MCU, so no Shield. And Clint has had a family off the grid this whole time. So, and he's got what, a son, a daughter, and another son on the way, Nathaniel. And yep, Nathaniel. So after the Battle of Sokovia, he retires from his life with the Avengers. He's in full on dad mode. He retires from his life as a superhero. And then he comes out of retirement in Captain America Civil War because apparently Cap needed help, something about the Accords, and the Accords, which were very, very ineffective. um, so he joins Team Captain America, and then for violating the Accords, he first ends up at the Raft prison, but then Cap breaks him out. We see at the end of Captain America Civil War that Steve Rogers broke his entire team out of the raft, and they all escaped. Although the whole Accords deal, it was too tough on Clint's family, so he, along with Ant-Man Scott Lang, took a plea deal where, in exchange for pleading guilty to all of the charges, to violating the Accords and whatnot, they were sentenced to 2 years of house arrest as opposed to doing hard time in prison. They were sentenced to 2 years of house arrest so they could still stay with their families. And we saw at the very first scene of Avengers Endgame, we see that Clint was still on house arrest when Thanos happened. He was living peacefully with his family, with his wife and three kids, teaching his daughter, you know, Lila, I think is her name, teaching Lila archery. So kind of kind of lighting the next torch in the Barton lineage and the Hawkeye lineage, I guess. And he was living peacefully, and then all of a sudden, boom, he watched his family disappear right before his eyes, and then he became the Ronin. His 2 year term of house arrest was up, and his 2 year sentence was up. He became the Ronin. He started to terrorize the criminal underworld in Mexico and Japan, and tracksuits, and so that sort of explained his connection to the tracksuit mafia. And then we see him again in Avengers Endgame, 5 years later, 5 years after Thanos, and so again, my point is we've had time to get invested in him as a character, and taking this all the way back to Moon Knight, it's like we're introducing new characters in spin-off shows. I've always said that the main world building in Marvel will always have to happen on the big screen. Not everybody has Disney Plus. Not everybody has all these streaming services. And I personally think you shouldn't have to watch like 15,000 just to understand a single movie. That's just me. Um, so yeah, Moon Knight. Another example is Miss Marvel. I feel like Miss Marvel they could have just, and I know the Marvels is coming out November 10th, and Marvels is coming out in 2 weeks. They could have just introduced Kamala Khan in the Marvels. She could have just shown up in the Marvels, introduced her there, and then do the Miss Marvel spin-off series. We've had at least one movie to get invested in her and maybe just do the movie first and then do the Miss Marvel origin story. I think, you know, because again, give us time to get invested in these characters on the big screen. Do the world building on the big screen. Don't be so heavily focused on the streaming service, Disney. If anyone from Disney's listening, and that's my suggestion. Yeah. So, well, on to the main event. Main event for today's live stream. New York Comic Con was a few weeks ago, and we got a lot of updates. I've narrowed it down to, I guess, Watch Mojo's top 5 updates. Top 5, like big reveals, big trailers from New York Comic Con. One of these days, guys, I'm definitely going to go to. I haven't been to a single comic book convention, haven't been to a single Comic Con. I know in Connecticut we have this WonderCon, and I actually think that Prestige and Easy Blues from Behind the Brand podcast, the podcast that I was actually on back in July before I left the States. Go check that episode out that I did with Prestige and Easy Blue on Behind the Brand. I think they were at WonderCon, which I think is usually at Mohegan Sun. It's either at Mohegan Sun or it's in Hartford. Yes, Mohegan Sun, yeah, WonderCon, and then Terrificon is another one. WonderCon, there's Terrificon. I want to say there's Kineticon in Hartford, and I think one year, I think Kineticon, either 2018 or 2019, they had Austin St. John. Austin St. John, for the Power Rangers fans listening, Austin St. John, he was the very first Red Ranger on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers back in like 1993, I want to say. 1993, like the very first Red Ranger. Yeah, Austin St. John, he was there as a guest of honor. So, New York Comic Con is not as big as San Diego Comic Con. That's the flagship Comic Con that happens every year. There's New York Comic Con in October. There's some comic book convention in Atlanta every year. I remember seeing on Instagram. I don't know if it's Comic Atlanta. There's London Comic Con. There's Comic Con in London that happened recently. Shout out to Don't Be a Hero podcast. Um, well, shout out to my listeners in the United Kingdom, listeners across the pond, and to the Don't Be a Hero podcast. Go check those guys out. San Diego Comic Con, that's the flagship one, as I said. I would like to attend in full-on cosplay one of these days. Star Wars Celebration. You have Star Wars Celebration, which I think last year was in London. It was in London last year, this year. So all these comic book conventions I'm going to go to one day. And you guys are going to see me at one of these conventions soon. On to the reveals. Dragon Ball Daimya. You see, it's hard to believe that Dragon Ball came out 40 years ago. I think it's like the 40-year anniversary, 1983. And the original is heavily involved in Dragon Ball Daimya. Shout out to all the anime fans who listen to Cobbs Corner. Dragon Ball Z. Dragon see Dragon Ball. I remember watching it in middle school. It was like an on again, off again thing that I was doing. I've watched all of Dragon Ball up to and including the King Piccolo saga. Yep, I watched up to the King Piccolo saga, and then I tried watching Dragon Ball Z. I skipped the Piccolo Junior saga. Tried watching Dragon Ball Z, and then realized that like I missed a ton of stuff. I need to go back and watch because initially I just watched up to like the Fortune Teller Baba saga, and then tried watching Dragon Ball Z, but then went back and finished Dragon Ball. But then just like looking at all the different series that there's been Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, which apparently is not official canon. Apparently, like in Japan, they don't recognize Dragon Ball GT as official canon. I remember Dragon Ball Z Kai, as it was known in the United States, it was called Dragon Ball Z Kai. I think outside the US, it was called Dragon Ball Kai. I remember that on Nicktoons. And yeah, there's just so many different series of Dragon Ball Z. The Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Heroes. There's just so much that I just was never really able to. I was just never really able to like get around to it. I was just never really able to get around to it. But yeah.
There. All right. So I had to switch my microphone really quick. I hope that you guys been able to hear me this entire episode. But yeah, Dragon Ball Daimya is coming soon. Got that trailer revealed. Got that trailer that trailer dropped. That trailer dropped during New York Comic Con. It's coming fall 2024, 40 years after the original Dragon Ball manga began publication. Right, so the Dragon Ball manga started 1983. So 40 years later, it's an entire I would say maybe two generations of us. I'd say maybe millennials and Gen Z. You know, two generations that have grown up with. Excuse me. This beloved franchise, this beloved anime. I am gonna anime out there, and I want to say that the second longest running anime is Pokemon, because Pokemon is also an anime that's older than me and is still going. Another anime that I tried watching, I started with Indigo League and I just couldn't stick with it. and then there's all the movies and stuff, so it's like, yeah. So check out Dragon Ball Daimya when it comes out fall 2024, 40 years after the original Dragon Ball manga began publication. Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. Monarch Legacy of Monsters is a television series coming to Apple TV Plus November 17th. So mark your calendars. It's coming soon. After the world-shattering revelation that monsters are real, two siblings follow in their father's footsteps to uncover their father's connection to the secretive organization known as Monarch. So apparently there's this organization, Monarch, that knew about monsters. This is kind of like a MonsterVerse movie. I actually might check this show out and let you guys know what I think. I do have Apple TV Plus, and yeah, it is coming soon. Action fiction, is the official genre, and I know that the show stars both Wyatt Russell as well as Kurt Russell. Anna Sawai, Kurt Russell, Mary Yamamoto, Ren Watabe, Kiersey Clemens, Joe Tippett, Elisa Lasowski, Andrew Holmes. So it's got a pretty stacked cast. Kiersey Clemens. Kiersey Clemens was in The Flash recently. She was in The Flash recently. She was in Dope back in 2015. I remember her as the girl from Dope. Hearts Beat Loud. Yeah. Iris West. She was Iris West in The Flash recently, which was a flop. But we will see the Hollywood duo of the Russells, Wyatt and Kurt Russell. They'll be playing the same role, the same character, but I think Kurt Russell will be playing the older version of that character in the present, and then Wyatt Russell will be playing that character, the younger version, in the past. Lee Shaw. Yep, Lee Shaw. Kurt Russell will be starring as Lee Shaw. Wyatt Russell will be starring as the young version of Lee Shaw. I've never been the biggest kaiju person. I did see Pacific Rim when it came out 10 years ago. I thought it was a fun movie. I heard Pacific Rim Uprising was terrible, and yeah, I heard Pacific Rim Uprising was not good. I haven't seen Godzilla, King of the Monsters, or Kong versus Godzilla, or nothing like that. Yeah. But yeah, Monarch Legacy of Monsters looks like a pretty good show. So I'm definitely going to be adding that to my list, November 17th. And I haven't really reviewed any shows on Apple TV Plus. I realized that's a streaming service that I've had that that's a streaming service that I've had that I haven't really used as much. So in the future, I will probably talk more about movies and shows, because I realized that's a streaming service. That's the one streaming service I haven't talked about any of the content on Apple TV Plus. I can confidently say, go back and listen to any and all of my previous episodes. I can pretty much say with almost absolute certainty that I have not talked about a single movie or show from Apple TV Plus. So apologize to my iPhone users, my iOS devices. Apple TV Plus, I will definitely be reviewing more of the content there. My calendar is marked for November 17th. Now, Kurt Russell did say in an interview, I think it was like last year, that he was ready to retire from acting. Now, Kurt Russell is, how old is he? He is 72 years old. 72 years old. And his son, Wyatt Russell, who's 37. His son, Wyatt Russell, is 37 years old. Wyatt Russell just made headlines as John Walker. He was John Walker in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he was amazing in that role. I can't wait to see him again as John Walker. And yeah, can't wait to see him again as John Walker. So yeah, his son's career is taking off, and I think this is a nice way for there to be sort of a lighting of the next torch. Seeing him and his son star in the same role at two different points in time. I do love seeing Hollywood duos like father-son duos, mother-daughter duos. And I would say Wyatt Russell is someone who has made a name for himself. He is not a nepo baby. of Hollywood. I think there's and that term has a lot of negative connotation. I definitely think that there's a positive side to that. I think that the Russells is a positive example of nepotism in Hollywood. And yes, Wyatt Russell might have gotten his start in Hollywood via his father being Snake Plissken, and his father being Kurt Russell. But Wyatt Russell's made a name for himself on his own. I think as he's come of age, he's made a name for himself on his own. He's a very talented actor in his own right. So I'm looking forward to seeing this father-son duo. And Kurt Russell, he's near the end of his career. More recently, Michael Caine announced that he's retired. Michael Caine is retired from acting. Michael Caine, who he's 90 years old. He's 90 years old. I know he was in the original Italian Job. I know him from the Dark Knight trilogy. He's one of those actors who, again, has been old my entire life. He's got an amazing filmography. That I just lost the word for a minute. The Great Escaper was his last movie. The Great Escaper. If my Wi-Fi will work. Oh, came out October 6th. Great Escaper, which came out October 6th. So he announced he's retired from acting. James Earl Jones is like 92, 91, 92. He's got a theater named after him. He hasn't announced his retirement from acting, I don't think. Harrison Ford will be playing President Thaddeus Ross in Captain America Brave New World. He's 81. He's said that he's in the sunset of his career. So I guess it's a classic example of you got to know when to say when. And it's interesting to see all these older actors say, actually retiring from acting. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of like a new thing. So who knows? This might be Kurt Russell's last role. He was not in Fast X as Mr. Nobody. He was absent from Fast X. Maybe he'll come back for Fast X Part 2. Who knows? But, 72 years old. You got to know when to say, all right, how much longer can I really, do this? That sort of thing. So catch Monarch Legacy of Monsters on Apple TV Plus November 17th. Orphan Black Echoes. Orphan Black is a Canadian thriller series that lasted 5 seasons. After 5 seasons, it starred Tatiana Maslany, Jordan Gavaris, Dylan Bruce, Ari Millen, Sarah, focused on Sarah. Sarah is a streetwise woman with a troubled past as an English orphan who bounced around foster homes before being taken in by Mrs. S., who uprooted her and her foster brother Felix to North America. She has made bad decisions in her life, but always tries to do right. Science fiction, biopunk. This series, Orphan Black, and now Orphan Black Echoes. Yeah, Orphan Black Echoes, which is an upcoming thriller series, upcoming American science fiction thriller television series created by Anna Fishko, based on the original series created by John Fawcett and Graham Manson. The series stars Christian Ritter and is set in 2052 in the same universe as Orphan Black. So something about clones, and yeah, I saw the trailer for this. Saw the trailer for this show, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't know if I'm gonna actually review this or not, but Orphan Black Echoes is set to premiere next year. Yep, it is set to premiere in 2024 on AMC, AMC Plus, and BBC America. So check out AMC, AMC Plus next year. Orphan Black Echoes, for those of you who are into science fiction. That is not the only AMC series that is on this list. Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the TV series. Now, I have a bit of a nostalgic connection to this series. The first episode will air on December 20th of this year on Disney Plus. Now, the movies, the Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the movies, I have seen both of them, the ones with Logan Lerman, the ones from the early 2010s. I read the first book, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, when I was in middle school. You know, I had like a Greek mythology phase in like sixth grade, maybe sixth and seventh grade, I guess. So I read Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Lightning Thief, and then I watched the movie on repeat. Although the movie, I don't know if I would go so far as to just call it a plain bad movie. It's one of those movies that's a adaptation of a novel that didn't follow the novel like at all. But I feel like it's a movie that was maybe so bad it was good. It's like so inaccurate and so like I get that when you're doing a movie based on a book, you can't include everything. And that's why, again, I think it's important to read the book first so you get the full story, you get the full context, and then watch the movie because the book can go places where the movie cannot. That said, I mean, the first movie took so many liberties and cut so many corners, left, right, and center, and yeah, I mean, it's a movie that just was so bad it was good. You know, it's a movie that's like so bad it's actually kind of good. I think Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters also again cut corners left and right. That book I didn't finish reading. I started reading it and then I think I lost it. Like it was a library book. I started reading it and then I lost it, and yeah, I just never got around to finishing it. Movie was good. Movie I liked. I think there were like 5 books. It was like Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, and then it was Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, and then the third book was I think the Titan's Curse, and then the fourth one was like the Battle of the Labyrinth, and then the fifth one was The Last Olympian. I only read 1 and 2. I never went any further than that. But this series looks pretty promising. It looks promising. You know, granted, I am going to kind of miss seeing Logan Lerman and Brandon T. Jackson, you know, as Percy and Grover, respectively. But this movie's got pretty stacked cast. Walker Scoble as Percy Jackson, Leah Jeffries as Annabeth Chase, Lance Reddick in some role. Lance Reddick, God rest his soul. Arian Simhardy as Grover, Charles Bushnell as Luke, Edge for the wrestling fans, for the pro wrestling fans, we got Edge, Aaron Copeland, Adam Copeland, aka the Edge, as Ares. So I like that they're doing a series. I like that they're doing it as a series and not as a not as a movie. So maybe it's different because doing a series adaptation of a novel as opposed to a movie. I've always said that doing a movie based on a book, you have a blueprint to follow, you have a framework to follow. You don't have to follow it to the T. You know, you could always go the Hunger Games route and break it up into two parts. You know, 2 movies based on a single book, or the Hobbit trilogy. It's like you do 3 movies based on a single book. I feel like there's more you can do with like doing a movie based on a book. and they kind of dropped the ball with the movies. But check out Percy Jackson and the Olympians TV series on Disney Plus this December 20th. So we will be ending 2023 with a banger. That is my prediction. Walking Dead. Walking Dead. Walking Dead. Walking Dead. Walking Dead. Walking Dead. Walking Dead has been around. The Ones Who Live. Yeah, Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. You see, this is a show that has been around for a very, very long time, since 2010. It's a show that I sort of binge my way through, seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then caught up with season 8 back in 2017. Probably my favorite seasons are 4, 5, and season 4 is definitely where it's at. I'm kind of debating, like, if I were to go back and watch the series, do I go back to season 1 or do I just go to season 4? It's a show that I feel like just has gotten repetitive, but props to Robert Kirkman and the writers and Angela Kang, and props to the directors and the producers for keeping the show running 11 seasons and then keeping the show running during COVID. Because I remember I watched up through season 9. I started watching season 10 fall 2019, but that's when college got hard. So it was like season 4 of Riverdale at the same time as season 10 of The Walking Dead, the beginning of season 10 part 1 of Walking Dead. And I eventually just stopped watching just because life. But I just never went back to it. And I tried watching Fear the Walking Dead, which is like a prequel, but I've always said that, like, once The Walking Dead went off the air, that I would go back and watch Fear the Walking Dead. It's a show that has like a ton of lore and just like a ton of content. And now there's like The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, who was kind of one of my favorite characters. I feel like season 9, like, we knew that it was Rick Grimes' exit from the series. Like, they even, like, the promotion for his last episode, like, it was called, like, they literally said, like, next week on The Walking Dead, Rick Grimes' final episode. So one of my theories was that the show was going to focus on Daryl Dixon, that Daryl Dixon was going to be like the new, like, main character, the new focus of the show, because Rick was kind of the main character. Like, we are introduced to this Walking Dead universe through his eyes. He ends up in the hospital, and then there's that first episode where he escapes from the hospital, and then he finds Morgan, and the rest is history, as they say. And then Rick Grimes exit from the franchise, exit from like the main show, but we knew back in 2018 in season 9 of The Walking Dead, a TV film trilogy, and so now there's The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live, which will see the reunion of Rick and Michonne, Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera. And I realized that the majority of the cast is like not from the United States. Like, Andrew Lincoln's British, Lauren Cohan also British. One of the main saviors was South African. So yeah, the number of the cast members were not from the United States. Pollyanna McIntosh as Jadis. I think Angel Theory is coming back. So yeah, the Ones Who Live got a nice little teaser trailer for that. First episode is February 2024. The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live is an upcoming American post-apocalyptic television series created by Scott M. Gimple and Denai Guerrera for AMC. It is set after the conclusion of the original Walking Dead series, with Andrew Lincoln, Denai Guerrera, and Pollyanna McIntosh reprising their roles. And we do know that Leslie Ann Brandt overly familiar with the series because I am not all caught up. So maybe I will go back to season 4 and binge. I know all 11 seasons are on Netflix now, so maybe I'll go back and binge watch all of those, and then catch up with Fear the Walking Dead and Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, and so it's just a lot of stuff to watch, guys. Okay, gotta pick and choose, you know. Lastly, for New York Comic Con, I think it was at New York Comic Con, we got What If Season 2. Got a I think it was exclusive content, exclusive footage only shown at Comic Con, so that footage has not been released to the public. And I'm kind of quoting Emergency Awesome, who had kind of broke the news. Apparently, there will be another season of What If. I love season 1. There was there was an episode of What If that I think we saw in the trailer for What If season 1. That the episode got pushed back to season 2 because of COVID, because of like the filming restrictions or whatever. The episode where it's like, what if Gamora had like defeated Thanos, and they have like this device that like crushes Infinity Stones, and we see at Nidavellir, we see Gamora along with Tony Stark, who apparently like Tony Stark, he crashed on Sakaar, so he's got like a Ravager armor. So there's apparently an episode. What if Nebula joined the Nova Corps? So this version of Nebula probably actually joins the Nova Corps and becomes good, essentially, maybe like after the first Guardians of the Galaxy. So as I said before, like what if they can go anywhere? Like there's infinitely many possibilities. They can go so many different places with this show, What If? And I'm really, really excited to see where they go with Marvel What If, because season 1 was so. We still got the Marvel Zombie series in the pipeline, which I've heard will be Marvel's very first TVMA series. We know that in the MCU there hasn't been a single R-rated movie yet. I think Deadpool 3, which I think the release date was changed again. It was either pushed back or I think it was pushed back again. I'm not sure what the new release date is, but we know that Deadpool 3, which is set to hit theaters, which is set to hit theaters on next year, sometime next year. That will be the MCU's first R-rated movie, and it will have Deadpool along with Wolverine. So, Marvel's first R-rated movie. Well, the MCU's first R-rated movie. Technically, Marvel Entertainment's first R-rated movie was Blade. There we go. And I'm back. Yeah, sorry, I think the Wi-Fi just like went out entirely for a second. But we are back, and I promise we're almost done, guys. And so What If Season 2? Disney Plus series will reportedly come out around December 25th. THR notes, whatever THR is, notes that the series was originally set for an early 2023 release, which was obviously missed and will now debut around Christmas Day. The animated series won't be holiday themed, though, as it is just how the production schedule lined up. So apparently, What If Season 2 is coming out around Christmas. What If Season 2 this holiday season? I think there's even an episode like What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas too. So yeah, Marvel What If. Definitely looking forward to season 2. Looking forward to Marvel Zombies when it comes out. And that's pretty much it for the New York Comic Con. In recent news, we have lost 2 actors in Hollywood. We've lost Burt Young. RIP to Burt Young. Our thoughts and prayers are with his friends and family. Burt Young, for those who don't know, Burt Young was Paulie. He was Paulie, and in the Rocky franchise. Yep, in the Rocky franchise, he was Paulie in Rocky's. He was in all 6 of them. Yep, he was in all 6 Rocky movies, and he unfortunately passed away at the age of 83 on October 8th. Yes, Richard Murray, known professionally as Burt Young, was an American actor, author, and painter. He played Rocky Balboa's brother-in-law and best friend, Paulie Panino, in the Rocky films. His performance in the first installment of which earned him a nomination for the Academy Award of Best Supporting Actor. So, Young died October 8th in Los Angeles. His daughter, Anna Murray Steingizer, told the New York Times on Wednesday, "No official cause of death has been given. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Burt Young." We've also lost the actor of Shaft, the original actor of Shaft, Richard Roundtree. Yes, Richard Roundtree. Now, one of these days, I will actually sit and watch the Shaft movies. I know they were kind of from the blaxploitation era. You know, there was Shaft, there was Coffee, there was Richard Roundtree, there was Pam Grier, that whole time period. He died October 24th at the age of 81. So Richard Roundtree was an American actor and model who was better known for his portrayal of private detective John Shaft in the 1971 blaxploitation film Shaft and 4 of its sequels: Shaft's Big Score, Shaft in Africa, its 2000 sequel, and its 2019 sequel, as well the eponymous television series. Yeah, so there was a Shaft television series, and so yes, Richard Roundtree, sort of, the character of Shaft and the blaxploitation era. So, RIP to Richard Roundtree. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the friends and family of Mr. Roundtree. Movies like Shaft, Shaft's Big Score, an eye for an eye, 7. So, yeah, Richard Roundtree. Last bit of news before we log off for today. Werewolf by Night is in color. So check out Werewolf by Night in color. I posted a photo on Instagram. Werewolf by Night is officially in color. Let me know what you guys think about it. I personally prefer the black and white version. That's just me. Yeah, Werewolf by Night. Officially in color. So go check that out. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you made it to the end of this episode, I greatly appreciate it. And do not forget to like this video, comment down below your thoughts on anything we covered today, and subscribe to the channel. We are at 83 subscribers. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. We are at, let's see, now we are 83 subscribers. We are 83 subscribers. And I thank you. I thank each and every one of you for subscribing. We're at about 135 Instagram followers, I think. So I think we can get that number up to 150. Let's get that number up to 150 on Instagram. Let's get that subscriber count up to like 100. All right. I thank each and every one of you who, especially those of you who have been with me from the beginning. Salute. And like this video, subscribe, hit that bell so you get notified when I upload, and follow me on Instagram at real_mechanical_engineer. Follow this podcast on Instagram and Threads at Cobbs_corner_podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Cobbs Corner Podcast, all lowercase. Definitely follow the Threads because I am going to start uploading more to Threads. And again, turn on those notifications so you get notified when I post. I hope you guys enjoyed your stay here at Cobbs Corner. I'll talk to all of you